BVI Finance Breakfast Forum. I'm your host today, Adriana Salvaral, where we will be discussing hurricane and disaster preparedness with the experts from the Department of Disaster Management, also known as DDM. Today, we hope to equip you with the knowledge and tools to navigate through natural disasters and by providing strategies for the following key topics, which are preparing for the 2023 hurricane season, their campaign Be Disaster Ready, and business continuity plans and how to create them. Our experts today are Michelle Ambrose, the Planning and Preparedness Manager, Crystal Abel, the Information and Education Manager, and Andrew Jackson, the Meteorologist, all from DDM. I too have a few honorable mentions. Of course, my concern is what's the forecast for the 2023 hurricane season. I mean, it's a little rainy here in the BVI. And then a couple of days ago, we had a little earthquake. I didn't feel it, but I heard about it. Whatever reason, we don't feel the earthquakes on the sea. And I was traveling from Tortola to Virgin Gorda as soon as it happened. But I'm sure we'll get more into the details. And I'll just like to hand you over to our expert without further ado. So Michelle, I know she has a lovely presentation set up for us.
Thank you, Adriana. We really appreciate you having us here. And my colleagues and I, we just intend to have a conversation with you, more or less. So today, we want to encourage you guys to ask questions, more so at the end, but throughout, you guys can drop your questions in the comment section, and we will definitely pick them up. But today is a conversation, and we don't just want to touch on business. We also want to help you to plan within your homes. Let me bring the presentation up just a bit. So yes, we're here to talk about emergency preparedness. And emergency preparedness, we see it from different lenses, but in this aspect, we're going to talk about how you can prepare for the various disasters or the various occurrences that might happen here within the BVI. And you can use some of the things that we speak about today to help you to prepare both your homes and your businesses. My colleagues and I will share what you can expect for this hurricane season. We also want to share some of the other tips and tools that you can use to prepare for this season. Also, we want to just share some special opportunities that you guys can definitely take advantage of. I know we have our meteorologist here online. Andrew, you want to help take us through this section?
Okay, no problem. Good morning, everyone. As was mentioned, my name is Andrew Jackson, meteorologist at the Department of Disaster Management. Okay, today we'll be looking at what the 2023 Atlantic hurricane season is most likely to be for this year. And as you can see, it says from the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, it predicts a near normal 2023 Atlantic hurricane season, with two factors being present, the El Nino and the above average Atlantic Ocean temperatures. So from the graphic you'll be looking at, you will see there is a 40% chance of a near normal season. So the National Hurricane Center predicts to have a range of 12 to 17 named storms, 5 to 9 of which may become hurricanes, and 1 to 4 of those could become major hurricanes. Now, by way of information, during an El Nino year, what usually happens is that we expect fewer storms due to vertical wind shear that's usually present at that time. And the other factor that's there is warm ocean temperatures. Now, when we tend to have warm ocean temperatures, you'll find that storms feed on this. And as a result, storm tends to develop more with very warm sea surface temperatures. Now, let us look at it again. El Nino suppressing the storm, warm sea surface temperatures boosting the storm. We have a conflict of these factors. So what we might expect is a balancing effect. So it all depends on how strong the El Nino effect is. That will determine if we have more storms or less storms, as it may be. So it might just turn out to be an average season, which usually is about 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 of which could become major hurricanes. Next slide, please.
Sorry, Andrew, to interrupt. I just want to jump in because one of the misconceptions I heard from a couple of folks this year was when people heard those numbers that you just called, they said, okay, so the BVI will see 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, etc. And I just want to remind persons that these figures are predictions for the entirety of the Atlantic Basin, right? So that covers the whole Caribbean, and that covers the Gulf Coast of the US, that covers Florida. We're all sharing these storms.
Yes, that's correct. So it's not necessarily saying that we'll experience 12 named storms in the BVI. It's just giving an overall of the Atlantic Basin, as long with the Caribbean and the Gulf, as which Crystal said. That's right. All right, so in this diagram, it gives us an idea of what hurricane season normally looks like, where it normally starts in June, ends in November. Now, if you should look in the September region, September-October region, you realize there's a peak, and that's where we normally expect the season to peak. And what you would have realized already is that we're already well into the hurricane season, because we're in July right now? So we're on our way in this hurricane season already. Next slide. All right, so as I was mentioning, we got off to a quick start in June, where we had Arlene off the coast of Florida, and Brett and Cindy that was a bit closer to us. So these that you see here are the names that we will be using for this hurricane season. Hopefully, we don't go too far down this list.
And so,
all right.
Andrew, yeah, I just want to add to here at this slide, you know, there are the various alert types, and when we in the BVI hear that there's an advisory or a watch or warning, we can get confused at times. It helps me. If I'm not seeing these colors, at which stage of preparation I should be at. So when you hear that there's an advisory or there's an alert, it means that authorities are monitoring an active system, and that you should continue to follow these updates in case they change. Also, when you hear that there's a watch, it means that the tropical storm or hurricane conditions are progressing, and it should be, it should affect us within 48 hours. There's a greater chance that it can affect us, and so we should be preparing. And if there's a warning, it means that the system is upon us, and it should be within our area within 36 hours. So we should be preparing for a likely impact. So when we hear these things, we should not be too much alarmed at the alert section, but as it continues to progress into the watch and warnings, we should look at our individual plans and start to prepare for the likely impact of these storms. And most of us know how the storms are categorized. We don't know really what the system or the scale we use is called the Saffir-Simpson scale. And they're ranging from 1 to 5, 5 being the greatest measurement. And usually we want you to be prepared for all stages, whether we hear that it's going to be, 74 to 95 miles an hour up to 157 miles an hour or higher. There isn't a step higher than 5. So anything higher than that is still within a category 5. And from our experience, Hurricane Irma did get up closer to 200, maybe just after that. So we all should be prepared at each one of these stages as the storms progress. We shouldn't be preparing at the last minute for any one of these stages, right?
Sorry, Michelle, you know I love to jump in there and just remind persons when we are speaking about what category a storm is, as you can see here, the only thing we're measuring when we speak about categories is wind. It's really important for folks to keep in mind that water is your other major risk. So storm surge, water levels, if you are in or near a gut, flood risk is very real and something to consider. And it's really a threat that is totally separate from your wind risk and from what category storm we're facing.
Sure. Andrew, could you help us through this slide? Understanding how these reports work. I know I've seen—
This is what we call it. Is everybody hearing me properly?
Yeah, I think I hear you clearly, just a little bit static. Go ahead.
Just by way of check. You hear me all right?
Sure, Andrew.
Yes.
All right. So what we have on this screen is what we call a tropical forecast cone. What it does, it gives us an idea as to where the center of the storm is most likely to track. So if we look again at the diagram, we see an X, and at that X, we have a kind of orangey shading. What that is telling us at that time at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, they're expecting tropical storm type conditions at that area. Now, if you look further along the cone, you see H's, M, and S and D. Now, the H stands for hurricanes, and the M, major hurricanes, the S, tropical storm, and the D, tropical depression. The cells or even its dissipation. And if you also look, you see where you have 12-hour intervals at each time, and they also give you what the likely strength or what stage that storm would be in, whether it be a tropical storm, a depression, a hurricane, a major hurricane. So you could actually have an idea as to where the track will follow. It's not necessarily going to be exact, but it just gives you a feel or have an idea as to how you can expect the storm to move along its way.
Andrew, sorry to interrupt. Can you just go over the meaning of the icons? Again, I think at some point it was a little skewed in the audio. Just the icons meaning, like the H, the M, the S, and the D.
Having a bit of... All right. Give me a second. You hear me now?
Probably help. We can hear you. It was just at that time when you were defining them, it was a bit shaky, and I just want to apologize to our participants because we are experiencing a bit of weather in the BVI at the moment, and I think that it's having an impact on our streaming. So at some point, if there is any breakup or disruptions, please send a question, and we'll be happy to go over anything that you've missed.
All right, because the connection is a bit unstable at the moment, but let's see how best we can work it.
You sound good now, Andrew.
Yeah, you sound good. It was just the definitions I wanted, because in all honesty, I don't think I've ever paid attention.
So you need me to go over the H,
The
icons? That's
M,
what yours?
Yes, I don't think I've
all
ever
right.
seen that or paid attention to
As
it
I was
personally. Go ahead.
Okay, no problem. All right. So as I was saying before, this actually is a tool that we use to give an idea of where the tracking of hurricanes or storms are likely to go. So the H is for hurricanes, the M is for major hurricanes, and the S, tropical storm, and the D is for tropical depression. So the cone is, like I said, it gives you an idea of what the tracking of that storm would be at different times and at what stage of its development cycle that it actually is. All right.
Andrew.
So we could go to the next slide. All right, so what's happening now? From this diagram, you can see that we have a system that has a 40% chance of developing, and this is out in the Atlantic. So that's good news for us, as it is not in our reach and we don't expect to be affected or impacted by this storm. But currently, that's what's happening now out in the Atlantic. Next slide. All right, a little closer to home. These red circles are representing what we call tropical waves. Now, these are usually the first phase of the development cycle of any storm. As you can see, you have one just off the coast of Africa with a lot of convectivity and showers, and also one closer to the BVI or to the Caribbean. That the weather that we're currently experiencing is as a result of this. Prior, a few weeks or a couple of weeks ago, we were having a series of tropical waves, that were coming across from the coast of Africa, but they were not so strong. Now we are experiencing a group of stronger tropical waves that are coming across. But fortunately for us, as they enter the Caribbean, that wind shear that we were talking about earlier, due to the El Nino, it's currently breaking up these storms, or rather these tropical waves at the moment. So that's good news for us in the sense that we get some rainfall, because as we can all see, it's very dry outside for the most part. So as these tropical waves come across, we tend to increase our rain chances and keep us a little cooler, at least, as they pass. Next slide. The next slide up. Okay, I'm not. Okay, good. All right, I'm seeing it now. A very colorful screen, as you can see. Now, what this is actually the Sahara dust, a very important phenomenon that we are currently experiencing straight through the Caribbean. And if you should look in the BVI area, you would realize that we are totally engulfed at this time. And why I point this out is that it affects the heat that we currently feel, because it makes the air very dry. And it also has some health impacts, especially on persons that have allergies and have respiratory type illnesses. So for example, people with asthma, sinuses at this time should be exercising extreme caution, especially if you have to go outside. If it's possible and you don't have to be exposed to this dust, we strongly recommend that you do that, because sometimes things that happen to us don't always happen all at once. And we might take for granted, say, yes, the Sahara dust is outside, but it's not affecting me. But probably further along the line, you might find yourself developing these conditions that you never usually have before. So we just need to pay special attention, especially to when we put out these advisories on our social media platforms, and even the website, because I do monitor these things and I make sure to put out the necessary advisories in a timely manner so that we can make the necessary preparations as these phenomena affect us in the Virgin Islands.
Hey, Andrew, I just have something. I'm just playing devil advocate, and I'm asking a question that someone else asked me. Does the Sahara dust help or hamper the season's activities?
Go again. You broke. I didn't hear you just now.
Yeah, I was asking, does the Sahara dust help us or hamper us for the seasonal hurricane activities?
Sure. If it helps, all right. What I think the connection is in and out, but from what I think I hear you say, they're asking if the Sahara dust helps with the hurricane season in terms of the development or non-development of storms. Is that it?
Certainly, yes.
All right. Now, as we know, for storms to actually develop, they need certain things. They need moisture and they need very little wind shear. So the dust, when the dust is present, the dust comes with a lot of dry air. And with that dry air, the storm cannot feed on that. So as a result, when we have an excessive amount of Sahara dust present, it's a bit harder for a storm to develop. Not that it cannot develop, it's just that it has to fight off the effects of that Sahara dust in order for it to get what it needs to fuel it in order for further development.
Thank you so much, Andrew.
No problem. So let's see what we have next on the other side. All right. Now, another tool that we use here at the disaster management is the WeatherStem. And even you guys can get access to the WeatherStem by going, you could just go in Google and type in BVI WeatherStem and you will see it, and then you could just access it. Now, if you should look to the left of the diagram, you see where there's a cruise ship there. What that does, it actually gives a live feed of what's happening at the pier in Road Town. And also it gives live information as it pertains to weather information. So you will get the temperature. You could get the type of weather that we're having at that time when that snapshot was done. You have partly cloudy skies. It gives you a lot of information that is as it relates to weather. And good news also, if you should look to the bottom of the screen, it gives you an outlook for future days. That would be like you'd say, for example, this afternoon, you'll get for tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And also, if you should, for example, should click on this afternoon, you could get hourly updates or hourly outlooks as to what we expect the rest of the day to be like. So it's a very useful tool, one in which I use and one in which you can use to get an idea of what is happening in the Road Town area. Now, another hazard that we've been looking at here in the BVI is heat. I know sometimes we tend to pay attention to flooding and all of that, but heat has been a major factor in the BVI right now. And on a larger scale, a lot of this has to do with the way the climate is changing over a period of time. Now, in this diagram, if you could look at it, you could see where we have information for the first 6 months. The information that we have here is what we call the heat index and the thermometer reading. Now, the thermometer reading is what the actual temperature recorded at that time would be. So in the diagram, the temperatures are representing the highest heat indices for each month all the way up to currently. So let us look at, say, for example, the third to last row, where we have the heat index to be 103 and the actual temperature to be 87. Now, that's a great disparity. Now, what that is basically saying that the heat index is what the temperature feels like to us when we go outside into that temperature, in that environment. So even though we're seeing 87, what the temperature is actually feeling like is 100. And we need to pay very close attention to this because we have persons like construction workers that are outside. We have kids that may be going to summer school and they may be playing outside. We also even have people who work on boats, or even our tourists that come here to enjoy the wonderful BVI and do their different sailing activities. So what we do here at the DDM is that we try to get this information out so that everybody can better prepare themselves. Because the truth is we can't always stay inside. But once we have to go outside, we will always give tips as to what we can do, especially through these excessive heat conditions. It's important to keep hydrated, keep abreast of everyone, especially our children and pets. Don't forget the pets. We have them, we need to, bear them in mind as well because they still have life and all of that. So in closing, I would always say, pay attention to what we post on the DDM website because we give credible and accurate information. And if there's any questions that you might need to ask, always feel free to call us at the office.
Before we move off that one, Andrew, would you mind just sharing with the folks a little bit about the different factors that can impact the heat index? Like, we know it's feeling hotter, but when you and I looked back through the data comparing last year and this year, we were able to see that this was it was a very substantial increase in the heat index. And so we know persons are feeling hotter for a reason because that heat index is elevated compared with recent seasons.
All right, what happened last year is that there was a slight shift in the direction of where the wind was actually coming from. And for us this year, we tend to be getting some of the winds from the southeast. And that means we're bringing up all that moisture from the equator. So what you tend to find happening is that we feel a lot humid. There's a lot more moisture. So you tend to feel that more humidity. And as a result, it makes you actually feel hotter than you actually are. So as I was saying before, the temperature on the thermometer might be, say, for example, 89 for example, in the last row. But what it actually feels like is 106. And that is all have to do with like how the humidity might impact on the way in which we will feel as a result of that.
Okay, Andrew, I see a question. Someone wrote that in some countries, the temperature remains steady regardless of the time of day. So how does that vary during the day in the BVI?
Go again, please. Or if
they asked, in some countries, the temperature remains steady regardless of the time of day. So how does that vary during the day in the BVI? I guess does the temperature fluctuate during the day in the BVI?
All right, it all varies on location. It all depends on location, because as I will allude to the fact that for some places we have different seasons, right? Like in the BVI, we tend to have what we call mostly warm conditions. So how it would change, it all depends on the location. So maybe they're you say pretty steady. Probably it has to do with the fact that they may be closer to the equator where they get most of the sun, and that temperature tends to be like that for all that period of time. For the BVI, we are close to the equator, but not that close. So it can vary as the time of day proceeds. So it all has to do with location, in my perspective.
Can you give us some insight about when it's hottest, when those vulnerable persons that you would have alluded to might be most at risk? Oh, here comes that's the same question coming up in the Q&A.
Let me see, let me check. What is the hottest time of day in the BVI? That's usually between like 12 to 2 here in the BVI. Anywhere in that time is between 12 to 2 for the BVI. And I like that question because I'm going to use this forum to ask a question that me and my colleagues been asking, and you guys could share your responses in the chat. Like, what is it that you would like us to put forward to you guys by way of information, and how would you like to get it? Because I mean, we don't want to be only putting stuff out there and you guys are not being read. So if there's any particular information, whether it be pertaining to weather or preparedness, as we're here talking about, let us know. Give us feedback as to what we can do to improve what the current services that we are offering to you guys at the DDM office. Because at the end of the day, we serve the public and we want to do our best at it at all times. So just like I said, we were having some discussions among ourselves, and we just want to be able to reach out in any way that is most suitable to you. So if you have any ideas as to how you would want us to reach you guys, you could always drop it in the chat, or you could always give us a call at the office.
Thank you so much, Andrew. That was very insightful. I know a lot of us maybe have some of the hamsters rolling around in our head. And at any time, you guys can drop your questions in the question and answer or make a comment. We will definitely do our best to answer all of them. And so we will go into some of the things that you can do to prepare for these hurricanes. And generally, you know, we want to just guide you to what you need to put together. Emergency kits are very important, even within the DDM. And in my personal, in my home, I have prepared emergency kits because I work at DDM, a kit for work and a kit for home. Depends on where a hazard, a storm might happen, whether I'm at home or I'm at work. I want to make sure that I put something together for myself and my family, and also things that I can use within the office. So your kit can be tailored to what you need for your family, but it should, you know, consist of food, snacks, so water, medicine that you might need if you're on prescription medicine, somehow, some way or some form to receive notifications from us, radio, so you can continue to listen on the different updates that we might be sharing. Flashlight, you should have some batteries. If they're the rechargeable ones, make sure they're charged in advance, or if you bought new packs, get the new packs in there. The materials that can assist you to shelter in place, like small tools, tarps that you might be able to use to create a temporary covering, duct tape, garbage bags. Just make sure that you can use some of these tools similar to, I call it MacGyvering. You know, MacGyver used some of these tools to help make a situation better if he had to. And some of your hygiene supplies, your toothbrush, soap, something that can help you with temporary toileting. Water might not be running, but somehow you have ways to keep yourself, your hygiene up, all right? And some of the things that you can do in advance, once you hear that the watch or there's the warnings, Make sure you go out around your property or your business. Remember, what we're sharing is not just for business, it's also for your home. So some of them can be used interchangeably. Inspect shutters, drainage. Make sure your doors are operating the way that they should and that they can lock and that they can be secured. Your windows, make sure your generators are serviced. Make sure that they're fueled. Your utilities are turned off, in advance. Some electricity might turn them off for us, but if they're not, make sure that they're secure, that if in the event that they go out or they're damaged, that you can make sure that it's safe when it's being turned on. I know some of us have retaining walls around our properties. You want to make sure that we inspect them to make sure that if there is a heavy drenching of water, that in that event, the retaining walls don't come down and damage the surrounding area or your buildings. Trim trees where necessary. I know I've seen a lot of persons going around even before they hear there's a storm. They're going around and they're pruning the trees around their businesses and around their properties. Another concern that we have is that during a storm, it's not necessarily the wind that makes the damage, it's the projectiles, and these bulky wastes or these tree limbs can create more damage to your property. So you want to make sure you remove the waste from around your businesses or your homes and trim those trees to help lessen the likelihood that these items may become projectiles. And identify your safe zones. I know for some homes, most homes, a closet or the bathroom, a small area might be your safe zone. Within your home, you go ahead and you do that inspection and see where best you can shelter or bunk out in the event that you have to shelter in your home. Coming from the last hurricane occurrence, reviewing your insurance policy is very important. Do that in advance so you can know in the event that you have to do some repairs or in the event that you're damaged, your policy can cover repairs.
Before you move on, Michelle, there's a couple questions. I think one that's more direct to what we're discussing. Janai Call asked what incentives, if any, are being offered this season by DDM, or if DDM even offers incentives to assist families that are experiencing some type of hardship, if they can obtain any necessity items to prepare for the upcoming storms.
I know we partner with some of the other agencies like the DV Red Cross and the Social Development Department. We can connect you with persons who can assess your situation, see what you need, and they'll be able to assist those families who, might need a little bit more help in terms of preparing for storms.
The other thing I want to add on to what Michelle just said, besides the government agencies, there's also a really strong desire among some of the faith communities where some of the congregations really see preparedness as a ministry of theirs, right? So we've spoken to congregations and they want to support their more vulnerable members or their needier members. So if you know someone who is in need, social development should be a first stop. For sure, visit the supporting agencies, but also consider your local faith communities, because a lot of times there are folks who really want to help. And so we kind of have to humble ourselves and say, this is what I need. I need a little bit of support with doing XYZ tasks or with purchasing XYZ supplies.
Thank you. And just before we go too far, there was another question, anonymous. They asked if we're going to face a red alert day for the heat, and how should we prepare for that? I think Andrew did mention a few things, but I guess maybe they missed some of the preparation tips. If you could kind of like go through that really quickly. Andrew's there. Okay, I don't think Andrew's probably experiencing some difficulty. Maybe Michelle or Crystal can jump in quickly.
I could jump in. Oh, but now I see Andrew. Go ahead.
All right. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
All right. So as I was saying before, all right, the question is whether we should be facing a red alert day. All right. Currently we're not in the situation where we would say we are going to be facing a red alert day, but nonetheless, we still are in a period where we still be expecting to experience some excessively hot conditions. So in that sense, what we would try to do is try to keep hydrated. If we are outside, we take more breaks and stuff like that, so as not to get exhausted. And if in even event that you feel certain ill feelings, feel free to go check it out at the doctor and stuff like that. But as I was mentioning before, we will always be giving tips on the website and even on our social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and so forth. And I'll take this time to remind people that we have relaunched our DDM app, and you could get it in the Play Store or the Apple Store for those of you who haven't gotten the app as yet. And you could get these tips and other weather information or even alerts from this app that we have just relaunched.
Thank you, Andrew. Ms. Michelle could continue with the preparation. I like this part.
Okay, so we did preparation. We know what to do before. When it threatens, when we know it's going to be here, it's 36 hours before here, it's 48 hours before it's likely to impact us. Hopefully by then, if we have already, activate your plans within your businesses and within your homes. You're going to bring in, some people have things outside, that's usually outside, but if you know that once the storm effects are going to impact us, you bring them inside or you tie them down with tie straps or by another mean. You make sure you charge your devices just in case the power is out. If you have the solar systems, you get those out and you make sure that they're working. And then you secure your building. If you are prone to flooding, I don't want to call any one situation out. If you're prone to flooding, you will do some preventative measures on the outside. If you have that one window that leaks when it drizzles a little bit, you go and you put your towels down and you put on your bars and your shutters. You start to prepare. And most of us do this too late. And we're all running around at the last minute trying to put these things together. But if we do it in advance, or we put things in place so that it's easier for us to mobilize, we should do that now. And if you're not comfortable where you are, you should decide early if you would go to another friend's or family's house, or if you're going to go to a shelter. I know that if a storm is threatening, most businesses will send their staff home to prepare. And if you're not comfortable at home, you would know from early whether you want to stay or you want to go. All right. And so you should make those decisions early so that you're not running across the yard or the street last minute for security. And also while we prepare, you want to make sure we think about our kids. It's not just adults who are dealing with, or young people. And we don't want to be of alarm. They're seeing us preparing and they could feel the stress from us as we prepare. So you want to make sure that we comfort our children and prepare for them, whether we charge their iPads and so on. As the storm is coming, we know that some schools might send home the kids, but it's not just for storms. There might be a situation where they cannot leave the school. You want to make sure you talk with the school and make sure they have a plan to protect your children if in the event something happens while they're there. And I know some kids, they don't know their mom's name. They say, what's your mommy's name? Mommy. What's your daddy's name? Daddy. So you should try to give them some of this basic information just in case they're separated or in case they need to find us if something happens when we're not with them. I know Crystal had a situation, and her little Shaki, he did the same thing. Right, Crystal?
It was actually Daddy who had that story where he was separated from his folks, and at the time he was the youngest child of a bunch, and people thought, oh, somebody else has him, and person of authority stops him. What is your mother's name? Mommy Abel. So from about 2, I had Shaki practicing his pronunciation and being able to say, okay, Mommy's name is Crystal. Here's where she works. Here's where we find her.
Okay, I think that's great. And we want to involve the children and everybody else in the preparation. It's not just us. If everybody is involved, we get a sense of purpose, and we all would make sure that we put each one of our individual efforts towards the collective and be a source of calm for them. I think it works a lot better when we, the adults or the leaders, instill that, things are going to be okay. Once we prepare, things are just going to be fine. And now the storm is here. We want you to stay indoors. There's no sightseeing. You stay indoors, you stay put, you stay sheltered. Most of the danger or most of the damages or the injuries come from when you explore. So you stay indoors and you wait for the storm to pass. You continue to monitor the updates that we might share on the social media platform. You might not have internet, but definitely the radio. You keep calm just for yourself, and you keep calm for the persons within your group, whether it's business or at home. And another thing that we really want to remind people, that a break, that pause, that calm in the middle, it's not the end. A person shouldn't be going out to explore. You really should stay put and wait until the eye of the storm has passed before you venture out to do any assessment. All right? Now, after the storm, I know we have these plans for our homes and our businesses, and hopefully by then we have them put together. You follow your communications plan. From a home perspective, I know your plan might say, after this storm, we will call this family member or experience after Irma when communications were lost. And we happened to get a chance to call someone. We were able to call Auntie Dorothy in Florida. Auntie Dorothy, we are fine down here. And if Harry calls you, tell them that we're okay. That could be part of your communications plan. And for businesses, you would definitely be reaching out to your clients and your other partners to let them know that the situation has passed, and give them just a minor report on your operations when you'll be resuming businesses, and when they can, expect more information from you. And so after the storm too, we want you to do minor checks on your staff, checks on your building, checks on your documents or your obligations, just to make sure that you have everything in line and assessed and accounted for, so that if there are damage, you can do some mitigation against that where possible. And in all of this, even after Irma, we realized that a lot of persons were go, yes, but also take into account your mental health. Some of this can be much, can be overwhelming, but we want persons within the home and within the business to really pay attention to your emotions and your mental health during this time. And we have a really big concern. We really want persons to pay attention to those persons with special needs. I mean, we can get up, most of us can get up and go if there's something happening, we need to run. But there's some persons who really need our assistance to be able to weather, to get by the storm. So persons with disabilities, we should have someone there to assist them. Make sure you have a backup assisted device, whether if they have maybe assisted air tank, have additional supplies. They need batteries for their pressure. I'm just giving a bunch of examples. Pressure machine or hearing aids or whatever. Do you have alternate or another source that if in the event that you guys don't have access to these things, these persons with special needs have their supplies, that they have backup so that they can continue to be comfortable. And if those persons who, have chronic health issues or conditions, you want to make sure you follow the care plan or even go out and do some things that in the event that something happens and they can't get to the doctor or they can't get to the pharmacy, you have these things on hand to continue to keep them safe and that they are comfortable. You mentioned the pets earlier when we were talking about the heat index, and they are friends, and we have pet mascots for some businesses, and then we have our love pets at home. I know in the past we let them go, but we don't let them go in the storms. We really have to put things in place so that we can secure our animals and make sure that they have food and water, medicine if they need it. Make sure they're leashed and in their crates, especially if there's a real threat and you need to evacuate and carry them out with you. And also make sure that if in the event that they happen to be separated from you, you have their tags and their registrations all up to date. Hey, Crystal, you want to help me out with this section here? Let's talk about earthquakes.
I know Adriana said she didn't feel it because she was on the boat. I shared a poll on social media, and actually a good number of persons did feel it. It was right around that commuter time, can't pick up time. That
Yeah,
kind of
it happened at like 4:33 or something. I'm too glad I was on the seas. Praise
God. What we definitely need folks to do during an earthquake is to really stay calm. The main things to do during shaking are drop, cover, and hold on. I think it's kind of Hollywoodish for us to have this idea that as soon as the ground is shaking, buildings are going to start falling. The reality is that if you look at what causes most injuries during an earthquake, it has to do with you fell and you sprained something, or it has to do with something fell on you and you got an injury that way, right? So I had a heavy glass vase up high, boom, it comes down, now I step on it, something like that. The vast majority of injuries are related to, I was trying to exit the building or I was trying to enter someplace, which I think is helpful for us to keep in mind, right? Because what that guides us to do in terms of action is to take cover if we can. If there's no place to shelter under, the idea would be to move sort of away from any windows, away from any heavy objects. And as you can see in the graphic, there are adjustments to be made in terms of if you're in a crowd, if you have a wheelchair, hit the brakes and still try and protect your vital organs as best you can. The main thing though is to be alert for what may be coming afterwards. In our area, we know that a significant portion of the shakes are happening, out at sea. So if there is a significant amount of water displacement, you could just advance me forward, Michelle. You could possibly have that tsunami watch. So the best thing that we got to test out this week with that earthquake is the new app. I did drop links in the questions and answer section. So if you haven't got the new app yet, please go ahead and do that. It's so comforting to be able to say to people, as soon as we feel the shakings, we're already in touch with PRSN. What's the status, what's the status, what's the status? And then generally we're able to share forward that advice to say, okay, so far it looks like this was the magnitude. And then maybe 2, 3, 5 minutes later, they would say this was the location. And then all along, if at any point any of their instrumentation is showing signs that a tsunami might happen, they would be letting us know. So I guess
what's the time frame for that one, Crystal? Because I think, yeah, you tell me what's the time frame, and then I'll have a follow up.
Right. So the good news, bad news about it is that it really depends on where the shake was. We have historical documentation of a really big quake that happened closer to St. Croix, and it sent a tsunami wave to St. Thomas within 10 minutes, and it would have hit Roadtown a little bit later. But if, based on the location of Monday's quake, it was more on the Anguilla side. And so, you have a lot more distance, which means you have a few more minutes to prepare. One thing that I do want to share with folks is that, if you have any doubt, there's no harm in heading to high ground just in case, right? Because what we do know is that there's a risk that if it's an extremely strong earthquake, and I'm thinking back to Tohoku in Japan, that was a magnitude 9, very, very major earthquake. And then they had the subsequent tsunami. If you feel that shake that is longer than a minute, that the shaking is so strong that you can't stay on your feet, just head to the safe zone. You're much better safe than sorry. We have a question in the Q&A box about sheetrock. I haven't heard anything specific in terms of how robust those are at the different levels of shaking. But what I can share with the anonymous questioner is that anybody who wants to can contact us, and they can get a hazard vulnerability assessment for their property. Somebody from DDM's mitigation team will come to your parcel or your business or your home, and they'll say, okay, based on your location, based on these materials, here's what we're observing, and here's some things that you can put in place to minimize your risk. The other thing that you can do is you can make a similar request to the building authority. And I think for you, the person who asked the question, that might be a better way to go, right? Because these are folks who are really trained in the latest and greatest when it comes to building materials, building methods, and then also being able to identify any signs of risk. I remember hearing that one of the things that a lot of folks did after Irma was they were like, okay, can we see, are we able to get an inspection and say, how well did the building do? We know it's still standing, but is it still strong? And so people were able to go out and get either property assessors or somebody from building authority, and just to give them some advice on how they might proceed going forward. Because even if you're in an older building, there are things that you can do to sort of reinforce and strengthen your property.
But DDM had I think it was a homeowner builder's guide.
Handbook for homeowners, that's right.
It was really thick, but I had a copy. I don't know, I think I downloaded it, but it was real thick. Do you still have that, or are you pursuing putting that online again, or is it still online?
I believe it is still online. When we have a minute, I'll try and find the link and track it down. I know we definitely still have it.
I thought that was really useful.
Yeah, and for people who haven't seen it, the good thing is it advises you if you are building a home from foundation all the way up to completion, how to correspond with your contractors, different signs you can look for, and it's really useful.
Yeah, because I think sometimes two persons go off of recommendations from friends and colleagues, and they don't really take advantage of how critical an assessment may be that would fit their unique dynamics of their home or their business, because a concrete roof where I live may not be the best for someone else that lives in another area, just because of all those things that the assessors have to take into consideration. But everybody was so traumatized after Irma, everyone was going to get a concrete roof. But then I heard persons who had concrete roofs that collapsed. So I was like, concrete roof kind of hot. Like, I'm not living for Irma, I'm living for me. So I
Right,
think
right.
that was
There's so
very
many different factors at play, in terms
right.
of how susceptible are you to wind? What's the slope like near you? What are your neighbors working with? That kind of thing.
Yeah, for me, on the topic of even earthquake and then tsunami preparedness, you're telling me in 10 minutes, and I'm like, in 10 minutes, can I run to the dock? Or can I get upstairs? Or like, what can I do in 10 minutes? Because
Okay. So
that's a really short
two things
window.
you mentioned, right? Two things I want to
Panic.
share with folks since you mentioned it. You said heading upstairs, vertical evacuation is a very effective way to do these things, right? So if we say a big wave is, maybe 10 feet, great, you're on the second floor. Are you in a building where you can go even higher than that? Wonderful. Again, I'll use the Tohoku example. Some of the most dramatic footage that we have is from people who knew that they weren't going to be able to get to high ground soon enough. So they went to upper levels and they were able to record footage of what they were seeing while they were at it. So not only did they protect themselves, they actually got us some really fascinating data to look at. And then if you're at sea, let's just say you're on a day sail and you hear that VHF radio go off and say, hey, we have an advisory. A tsunami, you might not even observe it at all if you're over deep water. So what you want to do is head to deep water. Don't go into the harbors, because the shallower the water, the higher the wave. That's what's pushing it upwards, right? So if you happen to be on the water when you hear a tsunami advisory, or a warning or a watch, you do want to head out to deep water to protect yourself.
Yeah, because I'm here calculating. I was like, okay, that earthquake happened at like 4:33. My boat was already gone. And it takes a half hour from Road Town, half hour to 40 minutes from Road Town to VG. I'm like, I didn't really pay attention to anything in between. That's like my window of debrief for the day. So all my commuters who are tuned in, I think, well, I trust the all the ferry operators. So I've seen a lot of them navigate in the worst of weather, and I haven't seen any of them, like I trust our local ferry operators, or so that's not a question at all. It's just maybe the passengers I'm concerned about, because the slightest bump, someone screams, someone throws up, and that's it.
Now we're all panicking, and that becomes the danger.
Yeah, I have more panic because of someone next to me than the boat actually sailing and navigating properly. So 10 minutes upstairs. You hear that, BVI Finance team? 10 minutes. We're taking the stairwell.
That sounds nice, but it shouldn't be. It should be your last resort. Vertical is your last resort. If you can get out and get up the hill, you do that. All right? And most of the damage, as I say, is from panicking. So let's do it in an orderly fashion, so that we're not running people down the stairs, or we're not butting people out of the way on the way, but the best we can up to the hill.
As long as I can take my bag. A lot of these drills, they tell us to leave the bag, and I think that's where I draw the line.
No way. Always go with your go bag. Even when the
Thank
little
you.
children practice their thing, they go even the smallest the kindergartners. They're 2 by 2, hand in hand, and they have their little lunch kits with them. I love to see it.
Okay. There's a question that says, is it better to stay away from buildings in open areas when heading up the hill?
I never thought about it in terms of buildings, because of course debris would be a risk. for tsunami evacuation. I do know that when you, like, let's just say BVI Finance, you go and you request a tsunami evacuation map. We do prioritize areas where your whole team can gather together. So there is a preference for open space in terms of that. But my understanding is that it's primarily because you want to be able to get your group together and count heads and ensure everyone's safety. So once you're at that higher elevation, hopefully you wouldn't be dealing with any debris from water. Michelle, you want to carry us forward?
Sure. That was really good conversation. I know Adriana did her research before we got here and she was ready for us.
Irma, right? COVID. Remember after Irma, we had a tsunami warning? That too, always the life experiences.
Oh, this is good to see for anybody who's in Road Town. All these areas that are in yellow are the areas that we would expect to be inundated if there were a tsunami event, right? So bless our terrain here in Tortola. We have these hills to protect us. And you can see areas that are quite close to the coast, like People's Hospital, are considered safe zones. We have these maps available on our website. We also have them for the 4 main islands. So there's a Tortola map, a Fiji map, a Yost map, and an Anegada map. And yes, Anegada has a safe zone there in the settlement, even though it's not a high elevation on its own. It's still highest elevation on the island. And based on the historical records, we think that that's why the settlement was built there, was because it was the place that was the most safe from storm surge and from tsunami overwash. Other potential threats, I know we have tons of folks within the financial services industry, so I know that y'all are right on top of global issues. Of course, we had that experience with the pandemic. We all learned a lot. And then cyber threats. Some things that people don't realize they might be at risk for are things like spoofing on social media or sort of interrupting your correspondence with your partner offices. And then, of course, phishing and ransomware. Basically, it's a really good idea to review with your office. Here's what to expect. Here's how we'll reach out to you. And if you see something that looks funny, just raise a flag.
Yeah, Crystal, and I agree. And we've just shared on a few of the potential threats. And the vulnerability assessment is something that even in your home or your office, you can use this vulnerability assessment to see what would affect you from either operating safely and with your and relaying with clients or being safe in your home. So you can do that assessment for both your homes and business. And you're going to mitigate or put things in place to mitigate against those top potential risks. So DDM is here to assist you. If you need assistance with the vulnerability assessment, we are connected with other agencies that can help you with assessing your properties. For the businesses, for the private sector, we also have an assessment questionnaire that we usually share. And at the end of it, it gives you information on how you can better prepare, what you can do to improve those preparation. At the end, it gives you scores, whether you're ready or not. You have some things in place, but you need to put more into place. This link can take you to that assessment. So I'm going to give you a few minutes just to scan the code. And I guess we can also put a link as well into the chat if we can find it. But this link takes you to a questionnaire with about a few questions, and it can help you to think about the things that you need to do to get ready in the event of a disaster. All right. And
Crystal has been, oh, go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, Crystal has been great with sending the links, but we'll be happy to share any additional information with our members and the attendees in a follow-up.
Right. And so we mentioned before this vulnerability assessment tool, the analysis on what can your business be affected by in terms of operations or even your home. So this list is not exhaustive. There are much more that you can consider. Outages, communication loss, and we've just had the pandemic. This is fresh, and it would be on the top of our list, on top of everyone's list. Fire in your building, other hazardous materials, flooding, earthquake, and so on. You go down this list and also consider the other things that might affect you in your home or might affect the way that you interact with your clients or the way you do business. And you would score based on the probability of this happening, how potential it is to impact your human resources, your property, your organization, and what available resources you have to be able to mitigate against them. All right, so this is a part, we can also share this too, but it's also a part of your planning, and you can do this at any time. It's always a good idea to continue to do the reassessments. It's not just once a year. Something may have happened and you may need to revisit this tool to continuously do assessments. Make sure you're on top of your game, right? For businesses who provide services or you rely on other vendors to provide services, this is something that you can use, determining your essential resources. This is what you need to be able to operate. You want to make sure you have a list of your key equipment, the supplies that you need to continue to function. You have a list of all your vendors. If your vendors are unable to provide services to you or supplies to you, then you are unable to provide further help to your clients. You have an IT specialist or other equipment that you need to be able to function, or web-based services. The internet may have gone out, or the spoofing, if that's one of the threats. But you would have a list of everything that you need to be able to function, the contact, what specific things that you need for each one of these suppliers or contacts to be able to function. In this way, you'll be able to track those essential services or resources that you need. All right, and it keeps it in one place, but obviously you would have it in a secure place because your information is your information, and you would obviously have a means to protect that information, but it's one place, and that you have a good understanding of what you need to continue. So essential vendors list or supplies list is important to keep.
Michelle, someone, Alyssa asked whether the slides will be available after the webinar, or you can give the slides to me and we can just share them.
It can be made available, yes, but being at this webinar is really good, so it could help you to understand as we take you through. But we can definitely share it along with the recording.
Yeah, I think we may have to have like another one depending on how the season goes and what feedback we get. But it is critical for persons to attend these webinars so that it puts the information in context. I know a lot, sometimes you just see it there bold, broad, and may need some more understanding or explanation. So if it is that attendees or members would like to have another webinar, or maybe even more specifically to things that they can do as far as business continuity or tightening up on plans, be sure to let BVI Finance know, and we'll let DDM know, and we can even do maybe a one-on-one session or trainings. Just let us know, and we'll be able to facilitate that.
Yes, certainly, Adriana. I know each one of these things, each one of these topics that we talk about today can be expanded. What we've done, we've basically truncated it. We minimize it, but each one of these things that we've talked about today, we can definitely expand. It can be as a day or a few more hours. We can definitely tailor.
Yes.
And so at the end of it, we just want to tell you how important it is to have a plan. It's important to know your local and international emergency contacts. From our experience, we don't just want to have contacts here on the island, we want to have contacts overseas as well, just in case we're cut off somehow. We can have a bridge or a triangle contact with someone. And our plans will account for everyone, from the head or the management to the janitor or customers or clients, to the dog. Everyone should be accounted for in any one of our plans, whether for home or business. You want to determine what your essential resources are, make sure we have a proper account of what they are and that we don't lose sight of them. Have a primary and a backup. You have one place that you want to go in just in case you can't get there. You can go to the secondary backup. It happened, especially with me for Hurricane Irma. My primary place was a family's house. I couldn't get there, so I had to go to someone else's. Even afterwards, it was difficult. And so we want to think about these things beforehand. If we can't get to one place, where else can we go? And ensuring that everyone within the organization or home have a part to play in the plan. Make sure we assign a task to everyone so everyone feels or everyone is a part of the plan. And these documents are very important. Even after Irma, we lost a lot of information. And whether it's electronic or hard copy, we want to make sure that we back up our information and we keep our important documents safe, and that they can be protected from the rain or the wet or flooding or fire or any hazard, and that they can be safe from spoofing or a hack. Please find different ways or alternate means to secure your documents, or safeguard your documents, and back your documents up so that they're not lost. A lot of us are working from scratch. And it also assists us even after the storm that we can work remotely, having them electronically or on the cloud. This portion is very important to both home and businesses. You know, a lot of persons lost their passports and the travel was delayed because they didn't have the travel documents, and that's because the storms went with them and they did not secure them. Have your travel information electronic or on your phone or someplace that you can pull it up. It's always good to have multiple ways to store your information. And so there are the many what if, to consider. What if you have to stay where you are, shelter in place, or evacuate? Consider these things when you're preparing your plan. Think about how you would communicate with other family members or leadership within your business, or communicating with your clients. And you're making sure you check on your vulnerable family members or those staff members who might just need a little bit more reassurance or help. And for businesses who rely on their services to make money, consider the financial aspects that the storms or the lack of business may have on your organization. If you're not able to provide services, you would be losing money. And so you should be thinking about those things that you need to do to pick up or continue service, so that you can start to make sure that you don't lose too much. You won't be making money, but you don't want it to be prolonged so that you be now losing more than you should. And insurance coverage is very, very important for us to consider in both our homes and our businesses. There is the growing concern that persons are not looking at their policies before or even after knowing what their coverages are, and if something was to happen, what would be reasonable for their replacement rates. All right, so consider some of these things, especially when you're planning. And we also have another guide, and we have, we're appealing to both home and business. So we have your home emergency plan. I think we can also share that all of this information is on our website as well, right, Crystal? And you can plan for your home in this easy pamphlet, and you can also plan for continuity within your businesses. And take a note of this link as well. There's several templates available, and like I say, when you're doing this for your business, you're going to involve the entire staff. Doing it for home, you're going to involve the entire family, so everyone is aware. Your plan shouldn't be just for upper management. Everyone should be aware, right? And you're going to consider the unique needs of your home or your business or even church. And another thing that is important, you don't prepare your plan and not practice it. We have quite a bit of occurrences. We do this thing every year, the tsunami Carib wave exercise. It's a really good opportunity for us to test our plans. When we at the DDM advertise, you can register your businesses, or even if you happen to be at home, you can also test it at home. When the alert goes, you head to higher ground and you do your checks and you do that. This route that we chose, it worked well or it didn't work well. Let's reassess. Who usually does this particular aspect of the plan is no longer with us. Let's revise. Who is responsible for headcount decided to go to Eastern instead of up the hill where we said it to go. We should continue to do these revisions regularly. Practice your plan. And we at DDM, we assist various organizations to put different scenarios together, not just for tsunamis, but other hazards that you may require for testing. So we can assist, anytime with that.
It's a good time too, Michelle, to give a plug. If folks are planning Q4 and what their different activities on the calendar might be, in October, I want to say the third Thursday of October, we'll be joining the Great International Shakeout, which is a worldwide earthquake exercise. It's a great way for businesses, families, schools to practice that safe earthquake response of drop, cover, and hold that we spoke about. If you want to make the connection between knowing what you're supposed to do and being able to do it during that high stress situation of an earthquake, participating in a drill is a really great way to do it. So we'll be sharing more details as it gets closer, but it's there on the system test calendar. And then that's another option too. Michelle spoke about when you hear the signal go off, but basically every month we not only test the sirens, we're testing the emergency broadcast. We'll send out the notifications on the app and via SMS through our mobile phone service providers. So that's a chance too, that if you say, okay, so for the month of July, the 28th is going to be the monthly system test. That's going to be our opportunity to, as a school, as a family, as a department, to practice XYZ emergency response plan. And it gives you a chance to see, does everybody know the plan? Are they prepared to follow through with it? Are there any additional needs that they have in terms of fulfilling whatever the requirements are? Do they need to have sturdy shoes under their desk as part of their work kit? Or do they need to replace those batteries in the radio because when we went on the road, we couldn't hear the all clear, that kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you for that, Crystal. That is very important. So let's take advantage of the various opportunities that we have. There's the shakeout, there's the tsunami, there's your individual testing, whatever you would like us to assist you with. We are here to help. And as Andrew said before, we want to make sure we get the information out to you how you would receive it. There's the newly launched DDM app, not the one before. We have this new one. Most persons may have it. And if you did have it, you would have gotten the notifications right away based on the activities the other day with the earthquake. We mentioned also the weather stem, and he mentioned it's at bviweatherstem.com. It gives you a live view from the complex elevated view of the harbor. And we also we want you to stay tuned into the local radio stations. DDM now has emergency radio access, 88.7 DDM radio. We would obviously launch that when there is something to note, and that would be going throughout. We have our regular VHF systems. Some persons have already a part of our morning testing that happens every morning at 9:30 for our exercise. And we have the very high frequency persons who are part of the amateur radio community. There are the text alerts from the cell providers. We have that partnership with them, and then we would send out information on the testing of our system, or even if we had any other information that will come out via the DDM app or the web providers. We have a website, we have the news sites, we have the government page. These are credible sources, and we should look to these along with the other credible sources. Really must pay attention to fake news and false news. Stay tuned to DDM's page and the government's website. Some of this information that we shared today, especially, is from NOAA, AccuWeather, some of the places that we find reliable information from. Please proceed to social media with caution. Everything that you see on social media may not be accurate, especially accurate for the BVI. And so you should make sure that you see where the information is coming from and see if it applies to us and if they're credible. So let's be careful. All right. We've been talking about it, the new emergency alerting app. Crystal, you want to talk about this?
It's definitely been mentioned, and I don't want to belabor it, but I do hope folks will download it. Right now you can get it on all the iOS or the Android devices. You are getting notification alerts, which is something that we know persons have really been wanting. This means that if you're not accustomed to listening to the radio in the office during the day, if you're not working in a place where you're near an emergency siren, you're able to get alerts from us basically instantaneously. And I've had volunteer testers sort of around our islands, but also back home in the US. Some of my former classmates are testing as far as Minnesota, and everybody is getting those alerts right away.
It's a new app, really. When you kept saying the app, I'm so sorry. I know I had the older app, so I was like, okay, I already have that app. I'm good. But now I literally just scanned it, and I just maybe if I could oh no, maybe that won't fly.
Yeah, if folks remember what it used to look like,
it's the
version in
DDM
2018. Logo. Exactly. If it's the red square, that's the old one.
That's the old one,
which is going dark anytime now. And then if it's the DDM logo, the navy with the circle.
We have the logo right there in your background.
Exactly. That's the one.
We have some more slides. Hold on 1 second, show you how it looks.
Yeah, if we could just. That's exactly what it looks like. So if you have the red logo, the red app person, that's the old one. I guess you could delete it because Crystal said it's going dark. And just look for the new DDM emergency app, which is their actual logo. It says the Department of Disaster Management. And install that. Because I myself, I was like, she said it a couple times. Let me download it. Yep. So Thanks for that. Now it's 11:35. You can go
Do we
ahead.
want to open it up for questions now? Is that okay?
We had some questions earlier.
Mhm.
Yeah, but we can open it up for additional questions as we come near the end. Does anyone have any specific questions? Let's see, Elise mentioned about shoes, but it was answered. You know what? I don't know. I see the word shelter. I don't know if you can maybe quickly say or list off all the shelters in the districts.
Oh, I don't have them to hand, but we just this week, I want to say Monday, issued the updated shelter list, right? So if that's part of your seasonal
Yeah,
preparations, you can
or
go
maybe
to
if you have a link. Mm-hmm.
dviddm.com. Yeah, I'll drop a link to, and you can download a PDF. So that's real easy to print out and post it, share with your colleagues.
Yeah. So no questions, none at all.
I know
So
what happens a lot of times is that you hear the general advice and you realize that you're a specific person with very particular needs. So we're very open to that if folks want to either ask the question on the mic or just type it up. And of course, people can also reach out to us after the fact if they like. We want to help.
definitely. And of course, Crystal or DDM and a whole can send information and we'll be happy to share that with the industry as far as preparing for any type of disaster. Because they've already asked for the slides. So we'll definitely, and I downloaded all the links that you have in the chat so we can also send them out in a general thank you email.
I'm just hunting up the shelter list so we could add that to your links.
Yes.
Well, I believe if there's no questions, we can ask persons to send it to them. They can assist. They can call our office directly, and we will definitely do all that. We want to thank you. Thank you for having us here. We're happy to share this information. Mm-hmm. And if any one of the partners needs us to come by and maybe give specific assistance, we can do that.
I'm sorry, I was here clicking the links before we close off. I want to thank you again, Michelle. Thank you again, Crystal. Thank you again, Andrew, for all the detailed, insightful information that you presented today on hurricane and disaster preparedness, and the Be Ready campaign, the new DDM app. Currently we're experiencing a little bit of a tropical wave. I understand. I got that social media alert. It was you that packaged that post or the picture that was going around on WhatsApp?
I'm not sure which one circulated.
Girl. Either way, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for those. I think it goes back to the feedback that Andrew asked for. If there was anything that you all can do. I know a lot of the times we have a lot of community chats since Irma that they're still active. And they've kind of ramped up. So I swear I'm in like maybe 10. But I'm grateful. So some of them actually post a link from the DDM Facebook pages that have all the details about whatever weather or the alerts as far as the Sahara dust, etc. And then there are those that actually have like the photo, the JPEG or whatever it is, that just has like a little brief summary. There's a wave. This is what it is. This is what you should do. And for more information, go to DDM. I think I like the picture because I kind of have like a little attention disorder where I'm like, this is a lot. Get to the point.
That's Andrew's project since he joined the team. So thanks for that, Andrew.
Yeah.